And welcome to a special edition of Round the Rotary. Actually, it's ranching Round the Rotary because we are recording this and filming this today at a good buddy of mine, ranch outside of Waco, Texas, Cole Thompson, who is the drilling and completions manager for PetroLegacy / pumper. Because currently his role, I guess you're in the field now more, right?
Well, it's slowly transitioning back to drilling and completions, but I was through most of the summer in the field.
Okay, well, let us know if you need any well site supervisors or project engineering. So, you might be a little bit dusty at that. I don't know. Contact Capital Petroleum Consultants for that. So, I'm ready to start off with a couple questions. I mean, we've been on, my family and I, my wife and my daughter, we've been out here for a couple days now, and all the girls are getting along, having fun. So, we decided to kind of throw everything together. We didn't just decide it. Who am I kidding? Like, I've been pushing for this for a long time to get Cole on the podcast, and Cole's one of the most interesting people that I know, and I think, but it's one of those things where it's so what we're going to do. We're going to start off with a couple questions I'm going to ask you, and these are ranch themed questions. Okay. All right. Number one: do cowboy butts drive you nuts? Yes or no? Why?
Negative.
Negative. Okay.
No.
Second question is: would you rather A, save a horse, B, ride a cowboy?
Save a horse.
Okay.
I love horses.
Well, I would like to hear about your breaking in of horses. That's something we discussed a couple days ago.
Sure.
And I'd love you to share that with the audience. Third question is, do all of your exes live in Texas?
Yes.
Really? Okay. All right. That's impressive. The fourth question is, what percentage of friends do you have, would you say, give or take, that live in low places?
About 30%.
30% of your friends live. Okay, that's good. So your
Good
friends,
balance.
very, very diversified portfolio of friends. Okay, so now let's get it kicked off. Thank you for answering those questions, by the way. I
bet.
appreciate that. So you grew up somewhere near here. So we're at his family's ranch outside of Waco, Texas, and you grew up somewhere near here in a similar.
Yeah, I grew up in Hallsburg, Texas, just
Okay.
outside of Waco. My dad's a rancher, so I was fortunate enough to grow up on a ranch, and he was a backgrounder. And
What's that?
A backgrounder buys stocker calves, from, say, like a mama cow operation.
Okay.
They get in a bunch of young yearlings, and then they'll raise them and try to put weight on them throughout the year, and
Well, how
then
much-
sell them to a feedlot.
So you buy them at a certain weight, you fatten them up, and you sell them.
That's right. Like
How much weight would you try to put on them?
you buy one like a 350 or 400 weight calf.
Okay.
Try to put 350 pounds to 400 pounds on it, and that's the margin that you're going to make on that asset, right?
Well, I think I can compete with that from COVID. I think I put on that weight during COVID.
The
But
funny
don't-
thing is, it's kind of similar to the oil field.
What do you mean?
It's a commodity, just like oil is.
Okay.
It's traded on the board. You can hedge it, and it's all about your lifting cost, or synonymous with your cost of gain.
Bam. So wait, how does the cattle prices, I mean, what fluctuates the prices?
Just the fundamentals fluctuate the prices. Of course, it's complicated, just like oil. It's probably less geopolitical than oil is, I would guess, but simple supply and demand fundamentals.
Yeah.
The futures market obviously can have some impact, and the
Yeah.
commercial investors and the speculative type investors. But yeah, it's very similar to oil and gas.
Okay. And if you don't mind, try to speak up a little bit for those in the back that are trying to
Having
listen.
a hard time hearing me?
Well, yeah, and I'm also watching the equipment here. So you grew up, you were breaking horses, you're ranching, you're a ranch kid growing up, and then you went to Texas A&M.
Yep. Worked for my dad all throughout high school, and got to break horses and ride cattle with all the guys he had working with them, and graduated high school in 2004. Went to Texas A&M. Graduated.
Did you always want to
08.
go to A&M?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
a third generation Aggie.
Oh, really?
My grandfather graduated in '54, and my parents graduated in the early '80s, and so I graduated with a petroleum engineering degree in 2008.
Did you always want to go? So how did you pick petroleum engineering?
I actually had an uncle that worked for BP, and at that time he was saying, there was a huge age gap and shortage of.
Oh, the great crew change. I think we've
Yeah.
all heard about since our career started.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, he told me about a degree you could get where you could come out in 4 years
Yeah.
and make decent money, and it sounded fun.
Did you always want to be an engineer?
Math and science, and I would say not always. At one time, I wanted to be a doctor, but hell, I had doctors talk me out of that.
Really?
Way too much school. You're indoors all day. But
What kind of doctor would you have been?
possibly a plastic surgeon.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay, all right, okay.
For obvious reasons, but
It's mainly cash, and you're helping people
that's right.
with their lives.
That's right.
Like any doctor.
Of course.
Right.
But no, the 8 to 10 years of school didn't really appeal to me, and
Right.
so I decided to go into engineering, and petroleum engineering sounded interesting because it sounded like a side of engineering where you can really get out there, roll your sleeves up.
So wait, when did you graduate A&M?
2008.
2008. So how big was your engineering class? Because I remember there were stories back in the early 2000s. I may be wrong, so if you're listening and apologies. About like the engineering class being like 13 people or like 15, like a small class. Was your class that small, or was kind of the oil field kind of more enticing to
No, I would say we started off
kids
with
your age?
a little over 200 kids, and when we graduated, we had about 90 to 100 kids.
Okay.
So
Are you still
relatively
are you still
small.
tight with that?
Very different than like mechanical engineering or nuclear engineering. Where
Right.
There's 2,000 or 3,000 kids.
So are you still tight with that group?
Yeah, a few of them.
Okay.
Hunter Wallace, who's recent podcast guest,
Yep.
and a few others I kept in touch with.
Were you friends with Hunter Wallace back in the day, in college?
No, I felt like he might be a bad influence, and I was
So he might be that 30% in low
No, I'm
places.
just kidding. We were friends, but we've become better friends later in life.
Throughout
so
the
we've
years.
kind of reconnected.
Right.
But yeah, he's a great guy.
All right. So after A&M, you get your first job in the oil field, doing what, where, and let's run this elevator talk us through that to where your current position today.
Yeah, okay. Quick elevator speech. So graduated A&M in 08 and took. Well, let me back up. While I was studying petroleum engineering, I had an internship with Gray Wolf Drilling, and basically they just send you out in the field for a summer and you roughneck on the drilling.
Okay.
So that was quite the shock experience, but
Was that the first time you've been to an oil rig?
that was the first time.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Where'd you go? Like,
Louisiana.
okay.
Yeah, kind of South Louisiana, and that got to experience that culture down there. And then I went to South Texas, completely different from South Louisiana.
Yeah.
Right there on the border, and so had the internship, graduated, and then I hired on full time with Gray Wolf, and continued sort of a superintendent,
Training thing, like
Yeah.
an ops management development
Yeah.
program, like a fast track program.
right, fast
Yeah.
track program for engineers to become rig superintendents.
Yeah, that's what. I was an engineer, but that's kind of similar to my previous role at Noble Drilling.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, so I did that for about 9 months, and then found out about a turnkey drilling group
Yeah.
that actually had drilling engineers in-house in the office that would take on drilling projects for other companies that, say, didn't have the engineering staff or wanted to mitigate risk with a turnkey bid.
So it's very similar, kind of my current company, Capital Petroleum Consultants.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys turnkey, but rather than being a day rate, it's like
Right.
one lump sum for the project. We'll get you from start
But I'm
to
talking about-
finish.
I'm not talking about
and
that.
take on all that risk.
I'm talking about more the project man. Okay, so you got hired on there.
Right.
All right.
I moved out of the superintendent role into the drilling engineering role with Turnkey Group.
Okay.
Got exposed to.
And that's actually where we met everybody. We met. I think it was my first or second day in sales when you were at this group. Am I thinking the same?
No, that was the group after.
Okay.
So I left Gray Wolf, went to Trayton Engineering.
Yeah.
And they're more of a contract engineering group, sort
Right.
of like CPC.
That's what I
very
thought you
similar
were
to
talking
CPC.
about.
Yeah. And got to wear several different hats there and work on the production side a little bit, but did mostly drilling there. And of course, that's where we met.
That's actually a funny story.
And that's great.
And I'll tell that story. Yeah, I'd like to tell that story. So,
Okay.
and chime in, please, in case I'm forgetting something. So, it was when I first got into sales, and I think it was my first or second day or something like that, and I was doing I was given a list of companies. Find, here's a list of companies and find some more. So I went to Trayton Engineering, where you were, and I went up there and I'm talking to the small group that was up there. They're like, all right, well, hey, we want you to meet our engineer. Okay, absolutely, sure. I don't know what I'm talking about. I've never been in sales before, but yeah, sure, why not, right? I like talking to people, I like meeting new people. So,
You were very confident. I will give you that.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
Not cocky, but confident.
so I go in, I knock on the door, and Cole turns around like this. Whoever's watching kind of turns around like this. Yes. I was like, hey, Cole, nice to meet you. JP1. I was working at Archer at the time. Archer. This is like first or second. No training or anything like that whatsoever when I transitioned into sales that I had. And you were very dry, very much the standard.
Quintessential engineer.
Very much the standard engineer. Where, and apologies for the background noise. For those of you that are tuning in, we are actually sitting in a garage in Cole's ranch, so there's noises that we can't control. So thanks for bearing with us.
People working outside.
Oh man, people working.
Is the sun down?
Doing some ranchy things. So you turn around and dude, you're so dry. You're like, ugh, we need this. Hello. So trying to talk to you, trying to get something out of you. Very cold, very engineer. And you turn, you're like, actually, if you have a flux capacitor XKG model for whatever, he named something like these like technical specs that I had no idea.
10K BOP.
10K BOP was 2 rams and 14 foot footprint. I'm like, what is this guy talking about? So that was the first time we met, and a couple months later, I'm doing a breakfast run over at Fidelity, and I kind of walk by his Cole's office, and I'm like, all right, well, here we go. And Fidelity's office was downtown. I kind of sit down, and it's, again, the same awkward situation, very dry, very quiet. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm not getting through this guy. So I just kind of like sit back, and I'm like, hey, man, it really smells like piss outside your office. Remember that? Yeah. That's when you turn around, you're like, what? I know, man. So that's kind of where we hit it off. Like, that just goes to show, have vulnerability, right?
That's right.
Bring stuff up. Be yourself.
We had a real conversation.
Yeah, we had a real conversation. It wasn't a schmooze, faux confident conversation. So anyway, went to Fidelity, which you enjoyed.
Yeah, that's one of the best roles I've ever had.
And you were actually working at the ranch, working remotely from the ranch when the Fidelity office was closed down.
When the downtown Houston office was closing down.
Correct.
We had the South Texas project. They sold that asset to Hillcorp.
Okay.
But when I came on board at Fidelity, they let me just take over this drilling program in South Texas.
All right.
And it wasn't a program where you go out and you contract a rig. They owned their own drilling rig.
Okay.
So it was almost a dual role of helping run a drilling contracting company, but also working for an E&P.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That kind of gives you good insight on that.
Yeah, and it was an older Vicksburg gas play, right on the border, Penitas La Jolla area.
Benitez La Jolla area.
Great accent.
Thank you.
Just outside of McAllen.
Okay.
And
That's way down
drilling
there.
in an urban environment on the border with drug trafficking right next door. It was some days like an episode of Border Wars.
Really?
Yeah. But the rig was very unique. It was a casing drilling rig.
I remember that.
And it was designed, of course, to drill wells with casing as tubulars. And the technology.
How common is that?
It's not very common. But
Okay.
the reason that we used it there, sort of the theory behind it was, it being an older field, the gas zones above our target zone were very depleted and lots of lost circulation. And when you're drilling with casing, it would help mitigate your losses to the wellbore, even though the annulus space was a little tighter.
Okay.
Sorry to kind of nerd out and get technical here, but it also smeared the cuttings on the side of the wellbore and helped seal those lost zones.
Okay.
And then it gave you options if you were going to.
How
move the
similar
hole.
was? Go on. I
Well,
interrupt too much. My wife tells me this all the time. Go on.
Let's say you're drilling a production zone. You're drilling with casing. You have a bit on the end of that casing.
Yeah.
If you get in trouble, you can drop a ball, release that bit, wireline set your float equipment and cement your drill string in the well, and you have a well. Rather than if you had drill pipe and you get in trouble and you get stuck or you're having a well control event, it's hard to trip out of the hole with the drill pipe and then get production casing in the well.
So that's kind of interesting, kind of being thrust in a role where you're doing something that sounds pretty innovative and on the forefront of something that's not common.
It was very innovative, very uncommon, and I can tell you I did not know what I was doing.
Actually, this is kind of a good segue question. So you were in a role, you were doing something that you were not familiar with, right? Mm-hmm. How did you get that knowledge? Did you trust your gut? Was there other people around you? Did you talk to your personnel in the field? How did you get the knowledge to drill with casing? God, that's a great question, JP.
That's a great question.
Thank you. Go on.
I would say that I was determined to learn. I knew I didn't know what I was doing. I was willing to admit that.
Okay.
But I was confident in my ability to adapt and learn.
But my question is, how did you learn?
So that's part of it, was I believed I could learn.
Okay.
And then I just got out in the field and got with the consultants that had been drilling those wells for years. Got with the contractor that was helping us run our company on the rig, and just learned everything I could about casing drilling.
So you pretty much kind of circled everyone and kind of got input from everywhere, listened.
I got out in the field.
Right.
And I talked to the guys that were on the rig, boots on the ground, and learned from them. Of course, there was some technical things to learn in the office, and our corporate office was in Denver, by the way.
Okay.
So I didn't even have a boss in the Houston office. I was reporting to a guy in Denver and sometimes in Glendive, Montana, one of our other field offices.
Okay.
But we also got good support from Pat O'Brien.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worth telling a little background on Fidelity, but these guys...
Why not?
Pat O'Brien formed the drilling and completions team from ex-BP guys that were involved with the Macondo or just trying to leave the fiasco.
After 2010, was that 2010?
Yes, somewhere in there, 2010. You know, the Deepwater Horizon event. And Pat was actually on the platform that burned down and literally like pushed his way into a safety boat or whatever you call the boats to escape the platform. And you know, he came over and brought a really good team, people that had been there since the Amoco days.
Oh.
And Pat was a great leader and engineer himself, had a PhD in drilling.
I don't think I've ever met anyone with a PhD in drilling.
I've never met anybody with a PhD in drilling.
Okay, interesting.
But, you know, had a lot of great leadership qualities and the knowledge to back it up.
Dude, tell that story about you picking him up.
Oh, yeah. That's a funny story. So the first time I ever picked him up from his house to go to the airport and fly to Denver, I show up at his house in Katy and park on the street and walk up to the front door, knock, 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 and this lady comes to the front door with just typical, you know, big Texas hair, blonde,
yeah.
You know, she had some fire about her, and I was already reading the expression on her face.
Yeah.
So she walks up, and I'm just like,
whoa, what's the expression?
I don't know. A little bit of anger and hostility.
So you like knock too loud?
Intuitively, I was picking up on this, and I knew a tongue lashing was about to happen.
Why?
And she just lit me up in the front yard about, who are you? What do you want? You know, and just made me feel that tall.
For knocking on the door?
For knocking on the door.
Why?
And I felt like I had trespassed and was a criminal. And then all of a sudden, Pat O'Brien comes out of the back, and he's like, oh, it's Cole. You know, he works for us, and it's okay.
Oh, so she thought it was a reporter.
A reporter, like investigative reporter, or the news.
Oh, so she was like, just like fed up with it.
You know, you can Google Pat, and he comes up on C-SPAN. You know,
okay.
He was in the middle of all the legal litigation and everything going on. So, luckily, he came to my rescue and calm. I think his wife's name was Pam.
Calm Pam down?
Yeah. Or Nance, or something like that.
Nance, calm.
Yeah. So, it was really funny. And anyway, we went to the airport, and he even
Did she laugh it off?
Oh yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
okay.
But she was unapologetic about it. I'll say
Oh,
that.
because she's probably just fed up with everyone trying to knock on her door and like
Yeah, they had been harassed.
grill her husband and her.
That's right, and it was a tragedy. So they were on guard.
Okay.
But despite what happened there, the talent and expertise that he brought over really helped, shape me as an engineer. I learned so much from them, and
He was
when
a
they've
good mentor?
seen something like that happen, they can teach you so much about how to prevent those type of things.
Okay.
Those high consequence events that could bring down a company potentially. Luckily it was BP and they're huge, but
Not luckily,
yeah.
because it's a tragic event.
And the South Texas area that we were drilling, it was a pretty hairy area to drill. Not only in an urban environment, like we drilled under schools, under neighborhoods,
high
under
risk.
playground, directional with casing, and yeah, the upper zones were depleted. But once you got to your deeper target zone, you're in a really high pore pressure environment that could potentially cause a well control event.
Do you view Pat as kind of, I guess, your mentor? I guess
He was a great mentor. I haven't talked to him in years, but he just had a way of communicating and inspiring confidence.
Okay.
And like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm sure he knew it.
Yeah.
But he believed I could do it.
So he gave you kind of the confidence to
Right.
kind of, I guess, carry through with projects. So from Fidelity, so how'd you get to where you're at today, Cole?
Well, I had a good friend introduce me to Jason Churchill
Interesting. Go on.
at Venado Oil and Gas.
Yes, I remember that.
And at that time, at Fidelity, the wheels were starting to come off their E&P side.
Okay.
They were owned by MDU Resources,
All right.
a big utility company out of Montana, Dakota area, and corporate office in Bismarck, North Dakota. And they're used to very, steady.
Wait, is this
market.
Venado or is this Fidelity?
Well, this is at Fidelity. So
Yeah, okay.
MDU Resources
Okay.
owns Fidelity. It's their E&P subsidiary.
Okay.
And oil and gas prices started coming down. The Saudis were flooding the market,
Mhm.
and this was like 2014-ish.
Yeah.
And towards the end of 2014, I just saw the writing on the walls and was like, all right, I need to get out of here. I was already taking over roles from other engineers that had left. I was over the South Texas drilling, but I was fracking wells in East Texas. I was drilling wells in the Arches National Park
So
in
you just
Utah.
spread thin.
Yeah, the national park, and which of course is
It's
an
probably
environmental
time-consuming.
nightmare
Yeah,
to operate
yeah.
in. But it was a great experience. Drilled some amazing wells out there. Used the best of the best technology, MPD, the directional.
I feel like that would be time consuming. I guess the paperwork or the permits and all
The
that
permits
stuff.
and BLM process was very time consuming.
Okay.
It was an act of Congress
Yeah.
to get a permit, but you had to get way ahead of your plans and have all that teed up and ready to go. But eventually, MDU Resources, they had enough of the volatility of oil and gas, and they started selling off.
I think
their
I have
different
too.
assets. Yeah, hard to blame them. And so reached out to J.P. Warren,
Oh, the host of Round the Rotary podcast.
and just looking around. I hadn't been laid off yet, but
You just could feel something was coming.
well, I was also traveling a lot. Every other week, I'd fly from Waco or Dallas to Denver, which was their
I
corporate
remember
office.
that. Yeah.
So the travel was really a grind.
You had two
And
kids.
I wanted to
at
get
the
back
two-
to Texas.
You had 2 kids at the time, correct?
2 kids at the time, 2
Right.
daughters. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you made the introduction to Jason, and they were Venado at that time, a little small
Yep.
private equity portfolio company, and they had a position in the East Eagle Ford, Lee County.
Yep.
I think they amassed like 100,000 acres. I'm sure Jason has talked about it.
Well, no, I mean, my previous company, Pinergy, we were setting conductor for them in Lee County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I know that
Giddings Meat Market. Just want to throw that out there. Delicious.
it was
Great
very,
place.
very tasty. You made the introduction, and they were looking for another engineer, and they were also working on a South Texas drilling
Yep.
project, sort of an explorative play. And Jason hired me to come down and help with drilling and completions there.
Okay. And then Venado actually, was April 22nd, because I know that was my birthday. You guys can put that in your calendars. I think that's when it spun, or something happened. I don't know. I'm not very clear what happened, or we don't have to discuss it. But anyway, PetroLegacy was formed.
Right. Not to get into the details, but we had a big transformation from Venado to PetroLegacy that you know today.
Right, and their Venado still exists today.
That's correct. A different investor,
Managing group, yeah.
KKR versus then Cat backed.
Right. Okay.
You know, they started up another group, KKR, and we rebranded as PetroLegacy. And we did divest the old Eagleford asset and then started a new fund
Howdy.
within CAP and made an acquisition out in the Permian,
Right.
in Martin County.
Okay.
And that's what we've been doing for the past 4 years.
Okay. And so how long? So you've been there for what, 4 or 5 years now?
Yeah, I started in January of 2015, so a little over 5 years.
Okay. The oil field, there's a lot of stigma to the oil field, there's a lot of reputation in oil fields. What's an internal myth in the oil field that you'd like to debunk or that you can debunk right now? What would be a myth or a stereotype that you'd like to debunk?
You know, one of the things that comes to mind initially is that I feel like it's hyperbole to say that field guys' ideas don't matter or they're not as important, but
Right.
discounting their input in certain decisions and not bringing them to the table as an equal.
To make decisions or
Right.
to provide input before decisions made.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that that's our mentality at PetroLegacy, but you know, as I transition to this role as a pumper, and I wouldn't even call myself a pumper because I'm not a good pumper. I'm just a pumper's assistant,
Right.
trying to learn from these guys.
Yeah.
But bringing them to the table as equals and sharing our neurons, you know, is one brain. And there's a lot to learn from those guys, and they may not have the technical gab, you know, that you might see in the boardroom.
Right.
But they certainly have the know-how and the skill.
But that's
And
also
then-
not their role because the people in the boardroom certainly won't be in the
Right.
field. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
you know, and
it's-
the stereotype
yeah,
is some of these guys are not great communicators.
right,
But they know how to get the job done.
right,
And I've gained tremendous respect going out and working with these guys and realizing I have so much more to learn about
Yeah.
oil and gas and how to be a better engineer because it gave me a different perspective.
right.
And if for so long you've got your blinders on and you're in your office
Mhm.
and you know you're doing your calculations or putting your progs and plan together, but you're not looking at it through the lens of that field operator. And
Yeah, the people actually executing the work.
right, like the production team and what those lease operators are going to inherit from you when you drill a pad, frack it, build your facility, and hand that off.
Yeah,
So going out in the field and working with these guys has just opened my eyes tremendously and made me realize how to be a better team player and more of a
get their input. So
right. Like
So similar
one
to
plus
you-
one is 3.
So
you know,
similar to
working
you
together.
learning how to drill with casing by getting the field personnel and bringing everyone pretty much to the table, you're kind of getting back to your roots, your country roots. You're kind of getting back to your roots of and I might be putting words in your mouth, but getting everyone back on that can make a
Right,
decision,
one
that know
cohesive
what's going
unit.
on.
That's right. I've always leaned on the field guys and you know come to them hat in hand and leave my ego at the door. Hey, I let them know right away what I don't know, and that puts
Okay.
them at ease.
Yeah.
Some people are scared to look stupid or
Some people don't want to not know.
yeah look inexperienced or whatever.
Yeah.
What I wanted them to know is this is what I don't know, and I asked all the dumb questions.
Mm-hmm.
And without fear of looking stupid or being humiliated. And that put them at ease. And then once I started treating them as equals, we really approached every problem together. And like I said, share our neurons. And I learned a lot faster that way because they were much more willing to share their insight and help me learn.
Do you feel that moving forward, I guess that's kind of be your mode to work, bringing everyone kind of to the table to make it for a decision. You feel that's something that you definitely implement the rest of your career?
I think so.
All right. I think that. So, do you feel that? So, I guess that being said, you feel that other companies should probably bring more people to the table, closest to the well, to the table before decisions are kind of made.
I think so. I've seen a culture shift at PetroLegacy where, we're all working remotely now and we're not in the office as much, but we stay connected and we communicate, and we bring everybody from the production supervisor, the workover superintendent,
Right.
or the production foreman. We get them all on the same call or Zoom conference meeting and approach every decision together.
Okay.
And make that decision together.
Do you get more credit and respect with your mustache in the office and in the field?
I feel like I do. Yeah.
So I remember the text you sent me. You're like, I'm gonna start growing a mustache because of you, JP. Is that still true? Or you're gonna keep it?
I don't recall that.
You think? Okay. All right.
I'm pretty sure I was the first mustache.
Ever.
Yeah.
Well, your mustache is looking
in the oil field.
Your mustache is looking very nice, buddy. So,
That's a way of life.
yours is too, JP. Thanks, Cole. So,
But your hair is even better.
hey man, COVID. I haven't been able to get it cut, so it's just grown this long.
What products are you using? Right
We don't have to get into that. We don't have time. No one cares about that. But it's honestly just a lot of dirt, sweat, cowhide,
A little bit of
a
oil.
little bit of oil, tack room, saddles, dust.
I like this rustic look.
I know, man. So does my wife.
That's what it's about, though.
Like, so for example, let me give you a little background on myself. I was born in Houston, but I grew up in Connecticut, okay? Like, we didn't ride horses. We didn't do that unless you were like an equestrian. We never did stuff like that, right? So, like, come here, throw a cowboy hat on, and literally, my wife is really into it right now. So,
I can tell. You're natural, though.
oh, man. Thanks, buddy boy. So,
You have a whole new
What?
swagger.
oh, man. It ain't swag. It's a way of life. It's a thought process, buddy. So, what let's wrap this up, man. Let's get inside. We got some steaks on the grill cooking right now. So unless you want to keep going, I mean, I'm fine. What do you want to do?
Whatever you want to talk about, man.
All right. What top 3 shows would you recommend to people out there who might still be stuck at home, quarantining and all that stuff?
Fiction or nonfiction or both?
It shows.
Okay. Well, the most recent one I watched that was amazing was The Last Narc.
Okay.
It's on Amazon Prime.
Better than
and
Narcos?
That's tough. The first season of Narcos was amazing,
So good.
but it was almost like fictional.
Okay.
The Last Narc is interviewing real people.
Oh.
It's not a reenactment, right? So it's more of a documentary. traditional
Really?
Documentary.
Pretty sick.
It's pretty awesome. So, just real quick summary on that show. It's about the Mexican drug cartel in the 80s and the murder of a DEA agent. I can't remember. I think it was Carlos Camarena. His last name was Camarena.
All right.
And he was murdered in 1985. And there's another DEA agent that is trying to investigate this murder. And he starts to uncover the involvement of not only the Mexican drug cartel, but the whole Mexican government up to the president.
Really?
And the CIA.
What do you mean in the CIA?
And
Actually, are you gonna ruin it if you say it?
well, I'm not going to give out any spoiler
Okay.
alerts here, but not everything is as it appears. And
Interesting. Okay.
this is coming straight from the mouth of Mexican-American DEA agents that were recruited in the 80s to infiltrate these cartels.
Yeah.
Because in the past, it was always the good old traditional boys from the U.S., and they realized they didn't understand the culture.
Right. They couldn't get in. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So they hire these guys, Chicanos as they call themselves, Mexican, Americans that are born here.
Right.
And they start using them as undercover agents to infiltrate these cartels.
Jeez.
It's very dangerous, probably
Yeah.
the more dangerous job out there.
Well,
So that's a great show.
tagging cattle's up there too, with our experience
That's right.
yesterday
Farm Ranch is
with
great.
number 59. We had a pretty long story short. We had a pretty aggressive.
Are we segueing into that?
No,
story?
we're not segueing.
Okay.
I'm just kind of sidebarring real quick. So pretty much yesterday and it's my second day ever tagging cattle, right? And I'm driving, and Cole is roping. We were roping him today, right? So he's trying to rope him, and this city slicker doesn't know how to rope. So I just said, just grab that tail. So he grabs the tail, and this mom, number 59, this mom was not peaceful. No. She was
very hostile.
Very hostile. I'm talking about she's running up and like smashing the gator, chasing us around the four-wheeler, putting her head in the four-wheeler. It was pretty,
it was getting Western out there.
It was very Western, right? Fortunately, I did not trip at all when the cow first charged. I did not trip at all and fall into some cow shit.
Actually, you did. You did trip and fall.
I'll just edit that out later.
Okay.
So that was pretty good. But good thing our families were watching us from about half a mile away, wondering what the hell are these guys doing.
They had quite the show.
Yeah. So anyway, last Narcos, we're talking about the danger about being a DEA agent and going undercover. So last Narcos,
the last Narc. Yeah.
The last Narc. Okay. And what else?
Oh man. And really, this is just the most recent shows I've watched. Operation Toussaint. It's about human trafficking.
Hot topic right now.
Hot topic right now. I believe that organization is called Our Rescue, and a gentleman from the FBI, I can't recall his name right now, he left his job working for the Homeland Security and gets into he builds this company where they go out and they fight human trafficking, and more focused on child abduction, and child sex trafficking. And he goes into Haiti and rescues these children, and he actually goes undercover himself also.
Really?
Yeah. Very interesting person. And very admirable to see him give up the security and safety of the U.S. government
to get down and dirty and
go
actually,
private.
Make some change.
But that allows, with the FBI or any organization like that, your jurisdiction is within the United States, but going private, he's able to work with foreign governments.
Okay, so there's some advantage to that.
Right, to fight this type of crime.
3.
Number 3. I'm trying to think of what else I've seen. Outcry is a show that's it's kind of a similar topic, but a young man in Leander is accused of a crime.
All right.
And I don't want to give a whole lot of details. Don't want to spoil the show, but it's interesting to see the DA and the prosecution really latch on to a goal and try to prosecute somebody.
So once they had their story, they had their decision, that's pretty much okay. I made up my mind, but
conviction.
now I made up my mind. But let's get from A to Z there. Like let's start making whatever we decide up.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's accused of an awful crime, and he goes through the legal process of appeal.
Yeah.
And this is in Leander, Texas, just north of Austin. It's very close to home. Just a few years ago, very recent. And it's just an interesting look into how that whole system works. So that's a great show, Outcry, on I think it's on Showtime.
All right.
Yeah.
Give me a quote that you want to give to our audience right now. What is a quote from Cole Thompson?
I have one on my phone.
No, you can't have technology that'll disrupt the frequencies.
Well, I got to remember what it is. Let's see. The only thing that you can control in life is how you respond to life.
I actually like that.
It's a great
and actually, I think that's probably more relevant now than anything. How are you dealing with this COVID quarantine? Places shut down for you. How are you personally dealing with it? Are you done with it, or it's like let's get back to the kids in school? Actually, let's not get into too much detail on that. But I mean, I'm sure everyone else is kind of not over it in a negative way, like let's not wear masks, but they want life to return to normal, right?
Yeah, I think I'm ready for life to return to normal and just open everything I certainly believe in taking the proper precautions
Right.
and help, stop the spread of COVID.
Right.
But I think we have to be practical and rational.
Is the reaction warrant to the risk?
Right.
Right.
Do people really understand the consequences of keeping everything shut in or shut down?
At home too.
At home, the economy. I don't think they understand the repercussions that are coming further down the line from these actions.
I agree. I think there's a lot of things that will happen that we're not thinking of.
Right.
We're
Right
not
now.
cognizant of it. We're not cognizant of it. But anyway, Cole, man, I appreciate it. We got some old steaks inside. Hopefully, it's number 59 heifer. And but anyway, Cole, I wanted to thank you for first off having us and hosting our family and taking time to do this podcast. I know it's something that I've been trying to get on the books, and I'm just glad we did it here, God's country, ranch life.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother.
All right, buddy. Well, we'll talk to you soon, and actually, I'll talk to you right now after we close out because we're about to go eat dinner. But thanks to everyone for tuning in. And if you have any questions for Cole Thompson or myself, you can reach us at Round the Rotary at cap-petro.com. Again, that's Round the Rotary at cap-petro.com. All right, everyone, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all soon. Bye.